We are giving out grades for what each team has done in the offseason, going division by division. We hit a division last year that was above 500, every single team, including the Vikings. The Lions are the favorites this season, followed by the Packers, then the Bears, and then the Vikings not far behind. So all four teams with 5-1 odds or shorter to win the NFC North. We have JP Acosta and Mike Renner here giving out their grades for what each of these teams has done in the draft, maybe with coaching changes, with free agency and all that, who you brought back, who you lost. Let's start with the Lions. And the biggest change here, JP, maybe not a player. Maybe it's a play caller after firing John Morton.
Yeah, I think their offseason gets a B from me, and I think the biggest thing that's going to come from this is the idea of Drew Petzing as their offensive coordinator. I like what Drew Petzing did in Arizona. I think there was a lot of stuff that was going wrong, but I think some of the schematics and foundational concepts that Petzing ran in Arizona are very similar to what Dan Campbell wants from this offense. I think getting Blake Miller in the draft is a really good idea, especially with moving Penei Sewell to left tackle. Miller's ready to start and win games right away, which is why I think they went Miller over guys like Monroe Freeling, other tackles on the board like Max Yanachor. But I think adding a guy like Derek Moore in the second round could be a nice pass rusher next to Aiden Hutchinson. But overall, I think this is sort of a business as usual sort of offseason for the Lions. I think they're going to benefit from a pretty easy schedule. But I think for the most part, this offseason was very good. They got on the fairway this offseason. I give it a B.
I'm a little lower, JP, just because I don't think this really pushed them over the hump. Now, if they were fully healthy the past 2 years, maybe they would have been over the hump already. Obviously, this is one of the best teams in the NFL, but they lost a lot, right? When you lose Taylor Decker and you replace him with a rookie in Blake Miller, that's just going to be a downgrade. Unfortunately, the Miller pick to me just felt like a reach for need, and you really hate to treat the draft like that on a consistent basis. And that's just what this felt like for the Detroit Lions this offseason. So I do like the Cade Mays signing. I think he really helps what was wrong with that interior last season. But I just think too much walked out the door when you look at some of the other free agents they lost. Guys like Alex Anzalone, Al-Quadin Muhammad, probably their second best pass rusher from a year ago. So for all those reasons, I still think they are maybe looking up at some other teams in the NFC this year.
Okay, so the guys a full letter grade apart there. And for the Packers right now, more than a full letter grade apart. Mike, why don't you lead us off with your grade of Green Bay's offseason?
I went with a C-, and this was another sort of writing on the wall offseason. They made this bed when they traded for Micah Parsons and paid him like a quarterback. So they lost a lot, as much as probably any team in the NFL this offseason. They are right now projected to have the most compensatory picks because of that with 4. Now, I will say, I don't think any of the players they lost are massive losses, are key pieces keeping them from going to a Super Bowl. I don't think that, but it's hard to overcome the fact that they're going to replace, 4 or 5 starters from a year ago, Rashawn Gary, Quay Walker, Rasheed Walker. It's like, yeah, they got options to replace these guys. You would rather have them on this roster next season. So for all those reasons, it's really hard to be super excited about this offseason. It's something that had to happen, though. I think they chose their battles wisely, and I think they got 2 immediate impact guys in the draft, in Brandon Cisse and Chris McClellan at positions of need. So I like their draft. I just think too much walked out the door to go any higher than a C-.
I'm actually going to give them a B, largely because of all the guys that walked out the door. They get 2 guys returning that I think matter even more, and that's Micah Parsons and Tucker Kraft. I think losing both those guys due to injury last season, in the middle of the season, I think a lot of people forget that when Parsons went down, the Packers lost 4 straight games and bowed out of the playoffs after Parsons got down. After he went down, I think having Parsons back, having Tucker Kraft back is a really huge part of that offense. With Romeo Doubs going out the door, you're going to get more from Matthew Golden. It felt sort of like this was the plan all along for the Packers. It felt like losing Romeo Doubs, you go and draft Matthew Golden last year because that was going to happen. That was going to be inevitability. I'm questioning a little bit the Jonathan Gannon defensive coordinator hiring. I think mainly just because it's going to be a completely different defense, and I don't know if they have enough bodies up front to actually run that defense well. But when you have Micah Parsons back at 100%, he can cover up a lot of stuff.
All right, so C- and a B there. Though, Mike, you still have this Green Bay team winning 12 games, isn't that right? When you W&L'd it a couple weeks ago.
I do, and that goes back to my point about these guys weren't crucial pieces. The crucial pieces were all injured last year down the stretch, right? Micah Parsons, Tucker Kraft, Zach Tom, Devontae Wyatt. As long as those guys are back and healthy, this is a championship caliber team. It's just, if those guys go down now, you really are toast.
It was a team that lost at the end of the regular season to the Chicago Bears, and it lost to begin the postseason to the Chicago Bears. Quite a bit of shuffling on defense for Chicago after that 11-win season. And JP, this is a team that's going to get the hardest schedule in the NFL this year based on last season's winning percentage for their opponents.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I give this Bears offseason a C+, largely because I just don't know if they did enough up front on the defensive line to really help get them over the hump. That was one of their biggest issues. And I want to say beforehand, I do think that the signing of Kobe Bryant, I think the drafting of Dylan Thieneman, that makes them a lot faster in the secondary. And I think that's something that Dennis Allen and the Bears really wanted to do. But I still have questions about what they're going to be up front, because that was their biggest struggle. They struggled to stop the run. They struggled to rush the passer. It's really hard to win the NFL if you can't stop the run and you can't rush the passer. But I do think that this team is still very talented, especially on offense. This is sort of them paying for and not having a lot of cap space. But I just want to see this defensive line in action, because I just don't know if they did enough this year.
Yeah, JP and I see this offseason very similarly. I just think I'm a little bit of a harsher grader here than he is. And I'll just go back to the draft, which to me, the problem I have with it is that it has such a low impact ceiling. The positions they drafted, safety, run blocking center, run blocking tight end, and kick returner in the top 100, like those guys don't make high money. You know, those are not $20 million per year paid positions. Your best outcome for this is guys you could have gone out and paid $10 to $12 million in free agency to fill those roles. So that's the problem I have with this draft, is that they just did not and will not get a massive impact from it. Maybe some of those guys are going to be good in their particular roles, but a lot of them are specifically role players. So I don't see how they push the Bears necessarily over the edge. I will say I don't mind the DJ Moore trade. I actually like the DJ Moore trade because it means Luther Burden's going to be getting more snaps, and he was electric down the stretch last year. This team's still built to compete. They're still very good. But another team that everyone kind of did not get over the hump. Top three teams in the NFC North that are coming into this season, none of them really made a play to be that 1A in that division.
And that brings us to the Minnesota Vikings, a team that had that quote-unquote meaningless winning streak at the end of last season. You got the J.J. McCarthy questions, and Mike, you go out and you get Kyler Murray in the offseason.
Yeah, that's the only saving grace for this Vikings offseason, in my opinion. I gave it a B- because of that. He's an upgrade from J.J. McCarthy, but what is he going to be for that offense is a big question mark, because for the last 3 seasons, he really has not been, a franchise quarterback. He's not been a guy who's going to take you to the promised land of where you want to go. So I think that's just the biggest thing is, yeah, they got better at the quarterback position, but is it enough? The rest of their offseason, they just did not add much talent to this roster. And in the draft, they drafted one of the most injured players in this first round that I was not a particular fan of.
I think I'm just a nice grader. I think I'm giving them a B+, but I think they got a lot bigger on the defensive side of the ball, especially up front. Adding Caleb Banks in the first round, I was a big fan of Caleb Banks as a player, especially if he's healthy. Adding Dominique Orange is really strong for them, especially because when you watched them play last year, they were run over. So I like the additions of getting bigger, and then Kyler Murray sort of raises the ceiling. So I give him a B+.
Okay, no A's from either of you for any team in the NFC North Division. Much more from these guys